Happy New Year, Bruce Naylor, your boomer consumer. And this is the first video of 2024. And this video is all about the Fosi Audio V3 power amplifier. This is what I call a miniature power amplifier, but it puts out big sound, but at a miniature price. If you're looking for something that has a small footprint on your desk, or you just want to build a miniature type of hi-fi system, this is certainly worth a look. And it does put out quite a bit of power. And I tell you what, I'm just going to tell you right up front, it sounds really, really good. Now let's talk a little bit about the price, all right? Currently, the version that sells with the 32-volt power supply is on sale for $80, but the retail is $99. Then for $130, you can get the version with the 48-volt. Now, we're going to go into the differences as far as how that affects the output here in a little bit. Now, the warranty is 2 years. Now, this uses the TPA 3255 that they consider a high-end digital Class D amp chip. Now, it does have user-replaceable op amps in it if that is your thing and you have the time and inclination to do that. As I said, it's featured with two different power supplies, 32 volts and 48. Now, if you look at the advertising for the power output, it's mentioned that it's advertised up to 600 watts. But one of my favorite sites to go to when it comes to these type of measurements is Audio Science Review, and they did some testing on it. So if you get the one with the 32-volt power supply, it really measures out to 62 watts per channel into 4 ohms and just 34 watts into 8 ohms. Here's where it gets interesting. If you go with the 48-volt power supply, ASR, that's Audio Science Review, measured it at 141 watts into 4 ohms and 89 watts into 8. So if you're looking for more power, then you definitely want to go with the version with the 48-volt power supply. And as I mentioned, there are replaceable op amps if you want to do that. Now, as far as physical measurements, it is small, 6.5 inches long by 4.1 inches wide and only an inch and like 1.4 inches tall. And one of the things I think is interesting is the whole body functions as a heat sink. There are vents on top of here. There's vents on the bottom. And yeah, so the whole thing kind of body, nice metal, functions as a heat sink. And let me tell you, with an extended listening session, it does get quite warm. Now, as far as frequency response is rated between 20 to 20 kilohertz. So it's got you covered. Now, how did I test the V3? So I have Apple Music subscription, and that is on board a Mac Mini. So via USB into the topping DX3 Pro Plus DAC. It can function as a preamplifier on its own as well. And as far as speakers are concerned, well, right now I'm using the Klipsch R41M speakers as kind of a desktop reference speaker, but I am looking for some new ones to use on the desktop. And I also use it with the KEF Q150 speakers as well. Let's talk a little bit about the music that I used. And the first CD that I listened to was Patricia Barber's Cafe Blue. The track, What a Shame. It just had a really 3D-like quality. It's a very soulful melody. And the amp, the V3, sounded very, very, very clear, very transparent and crisp. Now, that might be because it's Class D. Maybe it doesn't have quite the warmth of, say, Class A or Class AB amp, but it's very neutral sounding. The next track that I listened to was called The Thrill Is Gone. And again, I get that very dynamic, a lot of slam. It sounded fantastic. Moving on, one of my favorite CDs is Supertramp's Crime of the Century. The track Bloody Well Right, the dynamics on that, the sound stage, the imaging, just really very, very good. and then Dreamer. That's just solid rock and roll. It really is. Brilliant highs, very dynamic. And you'll notice I talk about dynamics a lot. That's that loud to soft, that slam in the music. That's what gets your toes tapping. And definitely with the V3, that was not an issue. And then new to me, and I've got this album on order, so I streamed it, was Neil Young's Blue Note Cafe. I just want to give a shout out to Mr. Steve Guttenberg, because he mentioned this in one of his reviews, this album. And so I gave it a listen, and wow, I was super impressed. This was rock with a big band sound. It's got that horns, baby. I think if you love that kind of music, I think you're going to find that an outstanding album. So on the front, you just have a volume control. And when you get this, there's a black knob on there, but they include this kind of orange one on here. And you simply have a little light, blue LED light that tells you that it's on. Then on the back, you have your left and right inputs on there, your line ins from your source. And then you have your speaker terminals, and then there is a 3.5 millimeter preamp out on here, and then your power supply input. I also like the overall design. I think it's well made. It's metal. If you like the idea of using replaceable op amps, great. Now let's talk about what I didn't like. So the preamp out is not variable. It is a fixed pre-out. I think that's kind of a miss. Also, you can't run these in bridged or use them as mono blocks. So I kind of dislike that because I think that would be awesome with this. Now let's get to my rating system. And I rate products on 5 key areas. The first one is fiddliness. So how fiddly is this little amplifier? Very simple to use. There's nothing really to it. You just simply plug in your source, your speakers, turn it on. That's it. So 1 star for that. The next thing I grade products on is the build quality. What can I say? According to the website, they use high quality internal capacitors. It's a nice metal case on there. It seems to be very sturdy. It's got a little bit of heft to it. So I'm going to give it 1 star for that. So 1 star for fiddliness, 1 star for the construction. The next thing I judge on is the feature set. Well, here's the thing. Because the pre-out is fixed rather than variable, there's no tone controls, there's no subwoofer out on here. I'm going to give it a 0.5 star for feature. Now, competitiveness. And first off, in all fairness, this has been here for probably close to 2 months, and I've been reviewing it for the last several weeks. Fosi came out with I think it's called the ZA3. And I think that is maybe a replacement or the next tier up of small power amplifiers. So just keep that in mind. But as this stands on its own merits at $99, I think this is super competitive with, say, the IEMA A07 Max. However, the Max is bridgeable, and you can use as mono blocks. The new ZA3, which I think is out of stock right now, available with the 48-volt power supply, I think it's around $150. So I'm thinking that if you're fine with the version for right now, it's $80 on Amazon, the V3 with a 32-volt supply, and you're fine with that, and that's plenty of power for most people, then that's probably a way to go. Would I spend the $130 to get this? Or the 100, and I think the ZA3 is $150. No, I would go with the ZA3 over the V3 at $130 with the 48-volt power supply. So on competitiveness, gotta tell you, I'm going to give it a 0.5 star. And finally, sound quality. Overall, it's very clean, very neutral. It's not warm sounding. It's not, cold. But it's got good punch to it. It's got good power to it. My review sample, by the way, had the 48-volt power supply. It's clean, clear, very pleasing. So overall, I say that's excellent. For sound, I give it 1 star. So that is 4 out of 5 stars. So this is a good value for the money. If you want to spend around $80 or so, get the version with the 32-volt power supply, and I think you're going to be very happy. If you want to pop for the 48-volt, I would more future-proof and go with the new model as opposed to the V3. And that is it. That is my review of the Fosi V3 power amplifier. Bruce Naylor, the Boomer Consumer. Thanks so much for watching. Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the next video.